We're talking about something at the very heart of what it means to be human, morality. And we're going to explore a really fascinating idea that morality isn't about logic or survival, but something way deeper, what our source calls a move of the soul.
I mean, just stop and think about this for a second. If you look at it from a cold, hard, scientific point of view, a hero sacrificing their life for someone else, well, it makes absolutely no sense. It goes against the number one biological rule: stay alive. There's no profit in it, no personal gain.
And yet, we see that act as the highest form of good, the peak of morality. So if it's not logical, where on earth does that powerful meaning come from? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack today. So here's our roadmap. First, we'll dig into that puzzle of sacrifice. Then, we'll see why reason and science kind of hit a wall here. After that, we'll look at the inner world of our intentions. And finally, we'll get into the argument for where morality might actually come from.
Okay, so let's start right there with that core conflict. We're looking at these incredible actions that just seem to fly in the face of all common sense and self-interest, but we instinctively know they're profoundly good.
And the perspective we're exploring defines morality in exactly this way. It's not supposed to be functional. It's not about profit. It's described as this non-rational move of the soul, something that's playing on a totally different field than our day-to-day world of cause and effect. And you can really see the clash right here. On one side, you've got interest. That's the world of logic, of what's functional, of what helps you survive. It's the world science can measure. But on the other side, you've got duty. It's often totally unprofitable, it's what we call heroic, and yeah, to a scientist just looking at the facts, it can seem completely absurd. And this is where the argument makes a really bold turn. The idea here is that this absurdity, this choice to put duty before your own self-interest, isn't some kind of mistake in our wiring. Nope, it's seen as a clue, a kind of window into a higher reality, a superior world where these selfless acts aren't absurd at all. In fact, in that world, they're the only things that truly have meaning. So if morality isn't logical, it makes sense that our tools of logic, like science and reason, might not be the right ones for the job. And that brings us to our next section, looking at the limits of science when it tries to understand good and evil. Now, this is a really key distinction. Our reason is incredible at its job, which is understanding how the physical world works, cause and effect, A leads to B. But morality isn't about how things have to be, it's about freedom, the freedom to choose. And according to this view, reason just wasn't built to understand that. It's like trying to measure love with a ruler. Think about it like this. A hurricane isn't evil. It just is. Science can tell you everything about the atmospheric pressures that caused it, but it can never, ever say it was bad. Science has to be value neutral. It just connects the facts. It couldn't care less about human joy or suffering. It can tell you how a poison works, but it can't tell you whether it's wrong to use it.
And this just feels true, doesn't it? It brings it right back to our own lives. We've all felt that inner battle, where your brain is making all these logical, self-serving points, but then some other part of you, your conscience, just says, no, we're doing this other thing. That moment, that victory of conscience over cold calculation, that's the core of a moral choice. Okay, so if the moral juice of an act isn't in its logical results, where is it? Well, that takes us inside, to the inner world of choice, where what you intend is everything. And the philosophy we're exploring makes this really cool distinction between drill and upbringing. Think about it. You can drill an animal to do tricks. You can force a behavior through repetition. But that's just creating a habit. Upbringing is totally different. It's about an internal, spontaneous change, the kind inspired by love, by a good example, by art. It doesn't just train you, it actually engages your soul. And this gets us to the heart of it. The deed, the thing you actually do, is just an event in the physical world. It's subject to the laws of physics. You could accidentally knock over a priceless artifact. The deed happened, but morally, it means nothing. The intention, on the other hand, that lives in that inner world of human freedom. And that is where the moral value comes from. It's not what you did, it's why you did it that defines the act. And, in a way, defines you. All right, this is our last section. We're going to tie all these ideas together and look at the big argument for where morality ultimately comes from, a reality that's beyond just the material world we see. And to really get our heads around this, we're going to look at a philosophical heavyweight who wrestled with this exact problem, Immanuel Kant. He basically figured out a way for science and morality to coexist in their own separate worlds, so they wouldn't contradict each other. So here is Kant's brilliant solution. He said, look, when we're using pure reason, science and logic, we have to admit we can't prove God exists. It's outside the scope of science. But when we're using practical reason, which is all about how to live a moral life, he argued that we have to live as if God exists. For morality to make any sense, God is a practical necessity.
But hold on. What about the argument that morality is just a social contract? Common interest for the good of the group? Well, this philosophy argues that's just a smarter form of selfishness. That's social discipline, doing what's profitable for the tribe. True morality is about something bigger, like universal justice, even when it's unprofitable, even when it hurts. It's not a social calculation. It's that move of the soul we keep talking about.
And all of this leads to the ultimate question, the one this entire argument is building towards. If morality is something that defies profit, that isn't rational, and that's based on human freedom and dignity, can it really exist all on its own without some kind of divine foundation? The argument from our source, from Alija Izetbegović, is a pretty strong no. His view is that a morality without God is kind of like a cut flower. It's still beautiful, but it's been severed from its roots and will eventually wilt. The argument goes that a truly consistent materialist worldview doesn't really have a place for fuzzy concepts like dignity or free will. And without a divine anchor, morality is left totally defenseless against the cold, hard logic of what's in it for me. So we're going to end by flipping this question over to you. We've talked about how morality might be more than just logic, how it lives in our intentions, and maybe even points to something beyond the world we can touch and measure. So the final question is really for you to think about. The next time you feel that pull from your conscience, that voice telling you to do the right thing, even when it's the hard thing, if that isn't just a cold calculation in your brain, then what is it?